סטטיסטיקות וחפיפה, לא?
זו חפיפה.
זה מתרסק.
כן, נכון שם לא מוצלח, מסכים איתך. צץ.
יש לנו נקודת ארד? יש לנו נקודת ארד?
מי שעושה את זה שעושים את זה עכשיו. Now, sets. In English, if you were to ask me, I think that the name overlaps, you know, in Hebrew, the term that we have in Hebrew, chafifot, well, some of the books refer to it as overlaps, most of the books refer to it as sets. Now, please write it down. שאלות הכוללות שתי קבוצות, so questions. שאלות הכוללות שתי קבוצות, questions that contain. Questions that contain two groups. So, פסיק. ופריטים שעשויים להשתייך לכל אחת מהקבוצות. And items that might belong to each one of these groups. See? מומלץ לפתור כך. נקודתיים. So it's recommended that we solve them like this. The first thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is to indicate the whole, את ה... סך הכל השלם. It's group 1 מצד שמאל למטה. זה שלב מספר 1. Indicate the whole and group number 1, but look, it's a drawing, right? And the second thing I want you guys to do is just consider where you would like, this is group 1 and this is the whole, just consider where you would like to place group 2. Is it going to be right hand side, left hand side, and the middle, based on the question? Got it? It is very, very straightforward. מה שאני רוצה, קודם כל תשימי את קבוצה, אחת משתי הקבוצות מצד שמאל למטה, האמת זה גם לא כל כך משנה אם תשימי את זה מצד ימין למטה, ואז את הקבוצה השנייה תשימי מימין, באמצע ומשמאל, על סמך ההוראות. Based on the instructions. Now, has anyone seen these? Has anyone seen this?
כן.
Venn diagram, have you seen this? Right. Now, Venn diagram, זה בעצם מה שאמריקאים מאוד מאוד אוהבים להשתמש ב-Venn diagram, כדי לפתור את השאלות האלה, שטויות, זה מטופש לחלוטין, it's not true, and I'll show you exactly why. We'll solve, you know, a question using this, and then you'll understand why I wholeheartedly recommend this. Venn diagram is nice in order to maybe understand, you know, the way things are presented, but not in order to solve, you know, questions. And these are two different things. So question 1, a certain car lot containing 1,200 vehicles, 750 of the cars are white and 600 of the cars have an automatic gear. So you see, you have two groups and you have items that might belong to each one of these groups. נכון? כולם מסכימים? נכון? יש לנו שתי קבוצות בפריטים שיכול להיות שישתלבו בכל... קבוצה. אתה מפיע? So the whole is going to be 1,200, right?
לא הבנתי מה זה.
לא משנה. כלום, סתם.
מה שרואים איתם?
המצלמה מחליטה?
בטח. כן, אבל נחזור.
אז אחר כך, אני לא אגיד. So this is going to be the whole. And group number 1 is going to be the 750. Got it? So this is going to be 750 white. Now, it doesn't matter if we're talking about question 1A, B, or C. This is going to be the same initial state for each one of these. Got it? Now, the 1,200 and 750. The only difference is where we are going to place the second group of the 600. מובן הרציונל, אז בשנייה שיש לך שתי קבוצות עם פריטים שעשויים להשתייך לכל אחד משתי הקבוצות, המוצא שלך זה שלם ואחת מהקבוצות. ואחר כך, בהסתמך על ההוראות, אתה תשים את קבוצה מספר 2. Take a look. What is the greatest number of cars that are both white and have an automatic gear? הקבוצה עכשיו של ה-600. אני רוצה לדעת את המספר הגדול ביותר של חפיפה בין שתי הקבוצות האלה. אז את הקבוצה השנייה של 600, אני אשים מימין, באמצע או משמאל?
משמאל.
כמובן משמאל, למה?
כי כל ה-750 מתוכם כל ה-600 יכולות.
נכון מאוד. That is going to be the overlap. 600 have an automatic gear, got it? And makes perfect sense. So here the correct answer choice is going to be 600. Now, Tal, in addition to that, people like formulas, right? So people want to know, you know, okay, so this is nice, but is there a formula for that? And yes, there is. And after you see this, you understand the formula. If you have a minimum overlap, אם יש לכם חפיפה מינימלית. מה זה חפיפה מינימלית? חפיפה מינימלית זה הגודל של הקבוצה הקטנה. It's a smaller group. Everybody agrees? נכון, חפיפה מינימלית זו הקבוצה הקטנה יותר מקטנה 2. Cool? For example, question number 1A. Question 1. Now, take a look at question number 2. If each car is either white or has an automatic gear or both, then what is the number of cars that are white and have an automatic gear? אז כל מכונית היא או שייכת לקבוצה ראשונה, או שייכת לקבוצה שנייה, או שייכת לשתי הקבוצות. מה המספר של מכוניות שהן גם כאלה וגם כאלה? שאלה, can this solve this? Can this scheme solve that? No, it cannot. Why?
Either or.
Exactly. Here you have. Here you have items that are neither white nor have an automatic gear, right? All of these guys, right? And here, Danielle, you're supposed to have every car has to belong to one of these groups. Got it? It has to be under this roof or under that roof or under both of these roofs. So again, let me ask you, group number 2, are you going to put it at the right, in the middle, or to the left?
Right.
To the right. Correct. Why? It has to be to the right. Why? Because then every single car is either automatic or automatic plus white or white. Got it?
Okay.
If you put it in the middle like you said. Okay. No. That's how they mean. Now, how do you find a number? So we said that obviously this is going to be the overlap, right? So how do you get that number? Yeah.
150 אולי?
Why?
כי צריך שזה יהיה 1200.
Exactly.
יש לי 600 שהם בטוח ב-700, אז איזה חלק מה-750?
So there are a couple of different ways, but what she's saying basically is if all of this is a 1200, right? And this is 600, that means that this is a 600 as well. 6. That means that if all of this is 750 and this is a 600, that means that this is a 150. Got it? Or alternatively, from 1200 you go back and you land on 600 to 750, that's 150. Or from 750, you have 450 right left here, so 600 minus 450 is 150. Got it? It's easy to make all these calculations if you have this drawing. However, take a look at the Venn diagram. This is going to be relatively difficult. Why? Because a circle, by definition, you don't know exactly where it starts and where it ends. Got it? It's on the other hand, a rectangle, you know, it's like it's like Legos. You know exactly where it starts, you know exactly where it finishes, so it's easy. It's like a number line. You just need to do some very simple calculations. Now, there is, this is what's called, by the way, oh, I'm sorry, this is a maximum overlap. Why didn't anybody correct me? Obviously, what is the greatest number? Right? That is my mistake. Yeah, absolutely. The maximum overlap is the smaller group. Now, if somebody were to ask me, what is the minimum overlap? Take a look here for a second.
Yeah, maximum overlap is the smaller.
The smaller group. Yeah. כי אם יש לך רק 600 פריטים, נכון? תסתכלו שנייה על המינימום אוברלאפ, תסתכלו על השנייה. If you have a group of 750 and a group of 600, and these groups do not overlap, what is going to be the distance from here to here? Exactly. Why? It's going to be longer than 1200. Why? Because they don't overlap. But then they squish together until they fit inside of 1200. So what's going to be that overlap? Exactly. That's going to be 1350, which could have been minus the overlap, right? And with the overlap is a 1200. So the difference between these two quantities is going to give us the overlap. So the minimum overlap is what? Is the sum of groups minus the whole. The sum of the groups minus the whole, for example, question 1b. So people... Yeah, no, well, the sum of the groups has to be greater than the whole, otherwise you would not necessarily have an overlap, which sometimes is also the case, but usually is not the case. אם סכום הקבוצות קטן מהשלם, אם נניח הקבוצה הזו הייתה שווה ל-300, אז לא חייבת להיות חפיפה בין שתי הקבוצות.
ואז זה לא שאלת חפיפה.
נכון, אז התשובה יכולה להיות 0 or none of the above or what have you. Right? Okay, what about question number 1C? If 200 of the vehicles are neither white nor have an automatic gear, what is the number of cars that are white and have an automatic gear? Yes. Fantastic. וזה די פשוט, בעצם מה שהיא אומרת, שמע, יש לך כאן, you have 200 that don't play, right? That don't belong to either group. So that means that the playground has now been reduced from 1,200 to 1,000. Exactly. מובן הרציונל? ואז איך את עושה את החפיפה? תגידי לי, את אותם?
מחסרת 750,000.
נכון. And then you have a 250, right? So if all of this is a 600, 600 minus 250, that's a 350. Or alternatively, Tal, you could have done 750 plus 600, which is 1350, right? Minus 1,000, exactly. So this one is going to be, 350. Okay. Yeah. What she said basically is that if 200 of the vehicles belong to neither group, right? That means that you have only 1,000 of the vehicles that can be either white or have an automatic gear, or be both white and with an automatic gear, right? So if one of them is 750, the other one is 600, so you do 750 plus a 600 minus 1,000. נכון? סכום שתי הקבוצות? פחות השאלה.
זה יוצא מינוס 350.
350 זה יוצא. 750 ועוד 600?
350.
כן, פחות האלה.
זה 350.
זו החפיפה. זו התשובה. בסדר?
ואיך לקרוא לזה?
That's exactly the point. Whenever people, yeah, it's like a limited overlap where, but here's the deal, and that's exactly why I'm not teaching it with the Venn diagram. That's exactly why I'm teaching it with this, because this is relatively free, right? You can go wherever the question leads you, and it can answer. There's no formula for this.
לא, יש.
Yeah, it's.
מינוס ההגבלה. אבל זה לא קבוע, צריכה להבין את זה איכשהו בשאלה.
Yeah. Now, here's the deal. There is a formula, but it's slightly too complex for this. Here, I would love for you guys to know this. In a second, I'll show you something that has to do with the overlaps among three groups.
אולי בכל זאת.
Yeah. מה? אני יודע, אני לא אוהב את הנוסחה.
אז התשובה ב-B זה 450.
לא, 150? 1B זה 150?
כי זה 600 פחות 450.
כן.
אוקיי, זה...
600, 150, 350. Okay, now, quiet please, please solve question number 3. Now, there is a small trick to it. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is, but go ahead. I'm going to show...
איזה שאלה?
דורס נגיד מגירה. שאלה מספר 3. ככה כותבים את זה. אז תכתוב פה.
הבנת לי מאחור.
שאלה 3. עכשיו די קטן.
נכון? אני לא הולך לדבר.
אבל הם לא רואים מה מינימום מה זה... הם לא רואים מה הכמות הכי גדולה של...
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. So, in a certain drawer containing 24 items, 12 of them are blue. So 24 and 12. That is the initial state that we're talking about. 16 are borrowed. How many of them are of the blue items are borrowed? So they could have, by the way, also phrased it. How many of the items are both blue and borrowed? But they didn't want to phrase it that way. Now here's the deal. This can be either a minimum overlap or a maximum overlap. What is easier to check, the minimum or the maximum overlap? The maximum overlap is easier to check. That is the smaller group, right? So, by the way, again, I can, yeah, exactly, it's 12. אני יכול גם לצייר את זה, and I can see it very, very nicely, but I know that it's going to be a maximum of 12. Everybody agrees?
Yeah.
What is the correct answer choice then?
B.
Why?
Because it's also
Minimum.
minimum.
Exactly, it's for up to a maximum of 12. Mind you, it doesn't have to be 12, it can be 12. Now,
Also
It's a make question.
exactly. Which of the how many? No, actually, it's a must question that the answer to which is a range. And range is not absolute, but it's its extremes are absolute. Exactly. So, what is the minimum overlap? Tell.
4.
Why?
Because it's the whole minus the...
Exactly. It's the 12 plus the 16 minus the 24, right? So this is the 4. That's a minimum of 4. Got it? And this is this is about a 75th percentile question. This is a question that only 1 out of 4 people on the examination would succeed, and it's not a very difficult one. It's not a very difficult one. Now, unfortunately, and I didn't used to always teach the following on SAT classes, but I do need to teach you that. Sometimes you have a situation whereby you have an overlap among 3 groups. 3 groups. Now, it's highly, highly unlikely that you'll see this on the examination, on your examination, right? But maybe 1 out of 100 quantitative questions is going to be that. כן.
לא הבנתי איך עשית את זה, איך ציירת את זה 12 ולמה 16 זה היה גם וגם?
לא, 12 זה היה.
פשוט הפכת את זה ולך
Again. It was 24, but 12, right? And the maximum overlap, the other group was 16, right? So the maximum overlap was 12. Got it? The maximum overlap, Danielle, is the smaller group. אז מבין שתי הקבוצות האלו, 12 זו קבוצה הקטנה יותר, נכון?
יכול להיות גם 4?
נכון, בדיוק. עכשיו זה ברור? Okay. Now, you guys know I'm not a big fan of formulas, but in this case, especially if it's that is what matters, obviously. In this case, I'm going to ask you to remember a slightly complex formula. Please write it down. אם, אני מכתיב. חבר'ה, אני יודע שזה פסח וגם לי לא בא להיות כאן, אבל לא, בא לראות את חלקכם. אבל עדיין, בואו, let's do this. בסדר? בואו נעשה.
חול המועד, מה קרה?
לגמרי.
עובדים קשה.
לגמרי. טוב.
מה זה עבודה?
אם...
נו, די מה.
לא כולם מפתחי אפליקציה. מובטלים. אם רוצים לחשב חפיפה בין 3 קבוצות. If we want to calculate the overlap among 3 groups. אני מבקש לזכור את הנוסחה הבאה, בסדר? נוסחה קצת ארוכה. אז נשמאל אלה. You need to have, יש לכם את סכום 3 הקבוצות פחות. כן, זו נוסחה. פחות 2 כפול חפיפה משולשת. פחות סכום חפיפות כפולות. כן. ועוד פריטים שאינם משתייכים לאף קבוצה.
לחלק
שווה לשווה. So it's the sum of three groups minus 2 times triple overlap minus the sum of double overlap plus items that belong to neither group, and that's going to give you the whole. Now, if you do see this kind of question, rejoice, because you guys are going to solve it and probably nobody else. These are really, really difficult questions. They show up, if they show up at the end of a quantitative section. השמור ולא אשמור. אבל בואי, תסתכלו שנייה, I want to explain this to you. Now mind you, I'm explaining this to you using a Venn diagram, but I'm not using a Venn diagram to solve this. I'm just using this in order to explain to you how, why it is that the formula looks the way it does. Take a look. Now, if you have three groups, you guys with me? Take a look at the whiteboard, please. Take a look at the whiteboard. If I have 1, 2, 3 groups, right? Everybody sees that this is a triple overlap. כולם רואים שהשטח הזה שייך גם לקבוצה השמאלית, גם לימנית התחתונה וגם לשמאלית התחתונה. Everybody sees that? Now, if I just add those 3 groups together, am I going to get the whole? Am I going to get everything without overlap? No. Why? Because there are certain things that I counted more than once. So the triple overlap I counted 3 times, right? Because it belongs to each one of those groups. But I want to count it only 1 time. How do you go from 3 times to 1 time? You subtract twice. עוד פעם, הדבר הזה, ספרת אותו כחלק מהמעגל השמאלי, הימני, התחתון.
נכון, 3 פעמים.
ספרת אותו 3 פעמים, נכון? אבל את לא רוצה לספור את אותה חלקת אדמה 3 פעמים, את רוצה לספור אותה רק פעם אחת. אז איך את עוברת מ3 פעמים ספירה לפעם אחת ספירה? את מפחיתה. פעמיים.
2 אף פעם שואלת, אבל בעצם כל השאלה שלי, מה זה הסכום של...
נכון. אז זה יהיה פה. זה יהיה הנהלה שאת רוצה. בדיוק. אם זאת תהיה השאלה, לפעמים זה לא. הלאה, take a look at the double overlap. Everybody agrees that this D1, right? Let's say this double overlap belongs to the left group and the right group. Everybody sees it? So I counted it twice, but I want to count it only once. How do I go from twice to once? I subtract once, exactly. And the same thing goes to D1, D2, and D3. אני חייב להתחיל פעם אחת. רגע, את כל החפיפות המשולשות. את כל החפיפות הכפולות. מעבר לזה, we might have items that belong to neither one of the groups, right? And if the whole might also include that. So I need to add the neither to the sum of the groups minus the overlaps. And only then I'm going to get the whole. It's a complicated formula, but I'm going to ask you guys to know it. Yeah?
אני רוצה להגיד שבתוך ה-D אתה כולל גם את ה-T, אתה מבין?
לא.
אתה לא צריך...
No. It works. It really does. The double overlap is just this.
יש לי עוד שאלה.
Just a sec. The triple overlap is this. Yep.
בשביל לדעת את הסכום החפיפות הכפולות, אני צריכה לעשות לפני זה, כאילו חשבתי...
No. I know that you guys, your minds are racing right now, but you know what? Let's just clear this up. Why don't you just solve question number 4 and see how it goes, right? Solve question number 4. This is sufficient. את זאת שמציקה לי כבר 3 שיעורים.
אתה אמרת לי להזכיר לך. רגע, פחות די ועוד
יש בזה משהו.
פחות די
ועוד neither. יודעים שלא? neither, נכון? נכון. היי, דולי. של 4, כן? זה 420. 23 קבוצות. שכר. נראה לי שאת צודקת, כן. עכשיו, 30 of the students are not enrolled into either one. נכון? אז, פתאים שזה זה 30. We are enrolled into each one of the 3 classes. מה זה יהיה? Each one of the 3 classes. נכון? אז מכאן, מעמד שלי אותך. נכון. כן. זו נוסחה שכוללת בזה, את יכולה להשתמש בזה ולחשב את זה, אבל אני גם יכולה להשתמש בזה ולחשב.
נחמד.
כן, זאת שאלה כמעט בלתי פתירה אחרת. So, give yourselves an example question before. A certain college has 420 students in total, so obviously 420 is going to be the whole, right? 420. 110 are studying English, so this is 110 plus 160 plus 210. And 30 of the students are not enrolled into either one of 3 classes. איפה זה יהיה? מה זה ה-30 הזה? neither, נכון? כולם מסכימים? זה ה-30. הלאה. And 40 are enrolled into each one of 3 classes.
minus the plus n.
Yeah, right. And 40 are enrolled into each one of 3 classes. מה זה? זה ה-T נכון מאוד, זה ה-triple overlap. כזה I'm good. And obviously we know, and Tal asked me, wait a minute, so am I going to use this in order to know the triple overlap? Yes, but you can also use it in order to find out the sum of the 3 groups, the whole, assuming that they give you all of the other items, because basically you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables here. As long as they give you 4, any of these 4, you will be able to calculate the other one, the remaining one. So you know in advance that they're going to ask you about the double overlap, right? And how did they phrase it? How many are enrolled into exactly 2 classes? So you just solve for D, right? And D equals up 10, and the correct answer choice is A. Got it? Nice. Yep.
אוי, זה...
יכול להיות מצב כזה שנקבל ונדגרם?
כן, אבל עכשיו אתה יודע גם... ונדגרם קל מאוד להבין מה היא אומרת. אבל לא קל לחשב בין זה עוד הדברים, אתה מבין?
אני תמיד מתבלבל אם המספר הזה כולל את השילוב ביניהם או לא כולל את השילוב ביניהם, כאילו מה הם רוצים פה?
זו בדיוק הנקודה. If they tell you, let's say that this is 30, 30 is the overlap. If they tell you that this is 50, 50 includes the 30, and that is the 20.
אבל אם ה-20 בפנים,
בדיוק, אז זה
רק 20, אז זה רק
בדיוק, exactly, החלק הזה. Good. Okay, so that takes care of that. So let me give you the answer sheets.
אתה יכול להבין גם רוביק?
רוביק.
יש רוביק.
נכון, לא חסר שם. אמרתי לה גבריאל.
גם דף
כן, כן, כן.
גם דף.
כן, כן.
מה? נכון, חלק מהתשובות הם אומרים מחשבון גרפי, כאילו... ואין לי מחשבון גרפי.
אני לא יודעת...
לא, אסור להשתמש במחשבון גרפי.
מותר.
לא, להפך, אסור, כי מחשבון גרפי יכול לסרטט פונקציות.
נו, בדיוק זה, חלק מהתשובות אומרים רק אם מחשבון גרפי אפשר לעשות.